Hi, everybody. Welcome to the IC Topic Chats for today. It's June 4th. We didn't even say anything last week when we were doing the panel, but it was like that would have been technically our 6 year anniversary. Not that, that doesn't exactly fall on the exact same day, but we've been doing this for 6 years. And so I'm totally inspired. I was just saying before we started the recording how inspired I am, and Emily and I spend a lot of time thinking about how can we do more for the group. Um, so if you're watching this by um, YouTube, you will get a link, probably be somewhere in the YouTube notes down below that you can click to give us some more feedback on what we're doing with these IC topic chats. It'll help us with next week's chat, which is going to be I'm calling it a meta chat because we're going to be chatting about, well, chats, the IC topic chats. I don't expect anything will change in the core structure. It's just what more can we be doing and why are we doing this? And so I'll share back some information. But today is a core topic. As many of you guys know, core topics are um, sessions that we do every year. We keep a very kind of similar routine to it. Every June, we talk about business planning. So if you want to hear me say pretty much the same things I'm saying today, a little bit differently, go back to June 5th of 2025 and you'll see it there. But we do repeat the core topics for a couple of reasons. One, it gives people to engage around this conversation in the chat, the actual live chat. Um, they're usually topics that people want to talk about, and if you follow the um, message board, the community message board that AEA does, it's the sort of thing that over the years people have asked about, or they're topics that we incorporate into the pre-conference workshops or any kind of workshops that I do, or Laura Keen and I do, or I do with my partner Kristen. And so I think this session today about business planning is kind of a good foundational piece. I don't start with it in January. I like to bring it in later after we kind of get through the stuff that people have to talk about, like why am I doing this, or what's my niche or niche? Um, how do I market, and how do I figure out fees and stuff like that? So those are the things people just can't. They got to get to right away. But we end up going back, and at a certain point, you want to think about what are you doing with a plan? And let me tell you my story before we get into it. Let's see, there we go. Before we get into it, back in probably 2010, yeah, it was 2010, I was doing the side hustle gig where people came to me and said, "Oh, we need a program evaluator to do this project." And I would write a proposal with them and they would get funded and I would do that thing on the side. And I was a director of institutional research for a small private liberal arts college in our university here in the St. Louis region where I live. And I just got to this point where I was like, I can't do this full-time job and I can't do this side hustle thing called Goshen Consulting at the same time. So I got to figure out how to limit the number of time and hours I spend on all of my work. Um, and so I went to the administration, went to the vice president for administration and said, I have this great idea. How about you make me some sort of a dean or a thing, associate provost or some kind of a thing, and we will create a research institute, and I will lead that, and I'll also support institutional research, and we'll make lots of money, and it'll be great. And he's like, this is wonderful, and kind of like flabbergasted by the whole thing. And he says, I'll get right back to you on that. Well, there's a lot of those vice presidents have a lot on their plates, and he didn't get back to me. And I got really mad. And I was like, he just presented this proposal to like bring in, you know, 6 figures of funding for years on end and perhaps even more, and we could grow this thing. And he didn't get back to me. And I realized they were never going to be very supportive of my approach. I felt like I was forcing this idea of a research institute onto the university. And so I decided, okay, well, I guess I better go start a business. How do I do that? There was no IC topic chats, and I didn't really know about the IC TIG at the time. So I was kind of like at a loss. And I'm sure every one of you have felt this way at one point or time. one point or another. And so I went to the Small Business Development Center here at Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville. You should, by the way, quick aside, definitely go look at the Small Business Development Center in your community. They're wonderful resources. They have people who will meet with you. It's almost always free, or if there's anything, it's a small fee just to kind of cover their costs. They usually are funded by the, well, various places. Sometimes they're local communities, the states, definitely the national SBDCs. So they're there to help you. They want you to start a business. They want you to be successful. They want you to buy buildings and pay taxes and do all those things that make small businesses great. Anyway, so they said, well, we don't really have anything on how to set up an S corp right now, but this weekend we have this speaker who's going to speak about business planning. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I went to it, and I picked up this book. It's by Rhonda Abrams. And so I guess it's probably dated now, but I think it's dated in that it's written on paper and everything like that. But the topics in here are really good. Um,
Matt,
the
do you mean to move your slides?
Nope. Not yet, because I realized, thank you for that, Jason. Um, I don't have slides on this stuff. I'm just talking. And then I'm going to get into the business plan in just a second. But anyway, thanks for that. But no, the business plan in a day helped me. I realized business planning is generally done for people who need to go get like a loan from a bank so that they can start up their ice cream shop or whatever they want to fund. And so they need to go to the bank. They have people who sit and review these business plans, and they, judge their efficacy and determine whether they want to fund it and all these things. And that's what this is about. But it doesn't have to be. In fact, I realized I needed to make a case with my partner, with my wife, that we should do this thing, that I should quit a full-time job that had benefits and all the things that come along with a full-time job and go after this crazy Goshen consulting idea. And she should be okay with that. And part of that was, the commitment to support the family through this new business idea, but also if things don't go well, how are we going to make it work? The fact that I would need health insurance for myself that I didn't wasn't going to be receiving from a career. So anyway, what I'm getting ready to do is go into a document that you'll see in the link that I shared a little bit ago, and I'm going to start pulling that up in just a second. I'm going to move that over, but that business plan document, and I'm going to put it into the screen. And it looks like this. I think you should see it if you click on the link. I see a bunch of people. There's a bunch of people already in it. There's a walrus and or that's an octopus, I guess, and a anteater. Um, Anyway, so this is the document that I dropped in the below, and it's one that I created, and it's one that you should take if you want to think through what your business is all about. Anyway, so the long and the short of it is, I created this business plan in a format not too dissimilar to what you're seeing here. This is a blank template, and I presented it to my partner, and we talked about it, and that's what we used to kind of as a backstory to starting this practice, this Goshen consulting practice. Anyway, so I'm going to flip through this real quick, and then I'm going to go back to the slides, and I will progress the slides, but you'll see it is effectively something where you can replace a logo here. You can put whatever in, you change the colors. If if your colors are green and blue, you should make them green and blue in here, whatever you want to do. But you have different sections that I'm going to talk about in the slides in just a second. But you'll see different things in here like Moxie, which is these are references to things that you'll see in the other core topics that we do. And I actually I dropped all those links in there earlier. If you want to understand what I'm talking about, you should check out those links. So anything about the why me piece, you see there, that's something that's in the core topics and the why should I be an evaluator. You want to talk about mission and vision and guiding principles. Those are things that, well, you can dream up on your own. You don't have to have a guiding principles and values if you don't think that makes sense. You can just delete this. But this is just a structure for you to think about and the way that I think makes sense for us as independent consultants in the program evaluation space. There's niche, but you guys say niche, that's fine. Marketing and sales strategy. Again, this is in the marketing section, but I'm going to go and I'm going to talk about this again some more. You can see that we've got a section on finance and fees, section on how are you operating as an LLC or a sole prop. What are my KPIs? How am I measuring my business? And then additional sections. All right, so I'm going to go back to the slides. All right, so when we're talking about the section, the company, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about each, what you might be seeing in that template, or that you may be able to use. The Who are you? What type of business do you want to be? Just general descriptions here. What are your values? Do you have a mission? When you get into the niche section, and again, go back to the niche uh, session that I did as a IC topic chat. I like to talk about Ikigai. I like to talk about that hedgehog concept, but who are the people that you want to serve? Um, how does your niche focus on your ikigai, that idea of the intersection of the talents that you have, your interests, where there's business opportunities, things that people will pay you to do something to do your thing, and what are those things what the world needs? And so that's a series of overlapping circles. And if you're focused on that center of that center of those four overlapping circles, you're in a sustainable place. Who are your customers? Where are they? Who do they serve? And how do they stay in business? So effectively, who's funding their operations and how do you make sure that you're serving them in a way that they can be successful? So you're thinking about their bigger picture. Who are you competing with? And oftentimes we're competing with people who are also doing consulting and for program evaluation who are not necessarily AEA members or even aware of there's an association for evaluation. Frequently, I think about my competition continues to be psychology, sociology professors who have amazing research backgrounds, but not necessarily any understanding for program evaluation. But frankly, what is it that makes you uniquely qualified to serve your niche? What sets you apart from those other people, from your competition? And these are good. I mean, frankly, this as you're doing this and you're answering these types of questions, you're going to find this may be just as much of a reflective exercise than it is anything else. And it might just be a journaling exercise. You may never show anybody this document. You may never even take this document to the point of getting it finished. But I think these are ways for you to sit and reflect and think about, why am I thinking about starting an independent consulting practice? The next step is to start thinking about how you're going to market yourself. What is your marketing message? Who are you? What are you about? Right? And obviously, if you're doing this right, this is all kind of stemming from your niche. It's stemming from your vision and your values that are the things that you put earlier, hypothetically. How do you intend to develop your network? How are you connecting with people? Who do you want to connect with? What would you share if you had a chance? If you're at a conference and you're sitting next to somebody and they go, program evaluation. I'm I've been thinking about program evaluation. What are you going to tell them? How are you going to, what is your, people talk about your elevator speech. How do you share in a quick format what you do as a program evaluator with different audiences? And if they understand program evaluation, what is it that you do that's different than others? The sorts of things that you're thinking about are the things you talked about in your niche strategy that you were talking about before. Maybe you're unique because you're in Utah. Maybe you're unique because you're great at analysis and you are great at data visualization, or you create reports that people want to read, and whatever. The marketing and sales strategy, some of this is also going to be like, what are you putting on your website? How are you marketing yourself on LinkedIn? If you choose to go to LinkedIn, as you guys, probably people are laughing at me right now because I don't usually use LinkedIn. I should probably use it more. Then you can get into the whole perspective on style. Do you have a logo? How do you represent yourself? At a certain point, I think you'll see this, and I'm sure there's chat going on right now, or there oftentimes is, that if you're going to represent yourselves and you are serious about this, stop using a gmail.com email. You should probably get the at yourcompanyname.com or .net type of representation. People are going to take you more seriously. You should have a professional looking website, these sorts of things. Um, your logo, I know you want to just use Gemini or one of your AIs to create your logo, which I think is fine for an initial start, but at some point involve somebody who understands data visualization and understands logos and style. So I did. I happen to think my logo is really nice. All right. There's a whole section on finance and fees. And again, go back to the core topic, the link I placed in the chat earlier. Emily, can you repost those for the people who showed up in the last 5-10 minutes? Anyway, the finances and fees, what is your hourly rate? Now, you don't need to share this with anybody outside. This could be just a document for you or whomever you want to share it with. If you have partners or you have a life partner that you want to share these sorts of things with, that's appropriate, but you don't necessarily are going to share this with the whole world unless you need to. But what is your rates? How did you come up with it? What's included in that? And the video that we have out there will share how to do that. If you're starting up, what are those things you should expect to spend money on, including little things like a desk and a computer. Don't forget about software and don't forget about insurance. Watch those sessions too on how to do those things. With whom do you coordinate your accounting and finances? So who are those professional advisors that are supporting you? Do you have a QuickBooks Pro? Do you have an accountant, CPA? Do you have a lawyer that you're talking to? And you'll also see, and we talk about in this, those people are worth their weight in gold. I know it's expensive, but so are you. You are a consultant. They're consultants too in their own way. So if you think there's value of people working with you, you can understand the value of working with other professionals who do the kind of work that's going to help you start your business. Do you have a line of credit? Okay, what's a line of credit? Quick reference. At a certain point, it's the ability to open up a kind of effectively a credit. It's not a credit card; it's an actual credit account where you can draw against it if you need it to for your expenses, because you're going to have expenses, perhaps your expenses to pay yourself, and you haven't actually gotten paid yet. So you might need to pull from that so that you can pay for your expenses. Do you have savings? How much do you need for all these sorts of things? All right, next slide. How are you going to operate? Are you going to be an LLC, an S Corp, sole proprietorship, something else? Are you going to be an LLC that's taxed as an S Corp? Watch the video, okay? I'm not going to try and explain that today, but what's that organizational structure that you want to operate with? And these are actually, that question in particular is one you want to ask from your lawyer and or your CPA. They should be in, and if they don't know how to answer that question, go to another lawyer or CPA. What are your key performance indicators? That's our December video. KPIs. What are the things that help you understand that you are being successful? The number one obvious KPI is, do I have money left in the bank after I've paid all my expenses? So do I have any profit? Am I able to pay myself? That's probably the number one KPI, but there's other ones. What percent of time do you have as billable work? Are you profitable? What's your proposal win-loss rate? And then again, here's another section where you could put your professional assistants. Who are your advisors, accounting, legal? You have a business coach, or you're working with a small business development center, the SBDC. Oh, you probably should put us, ICTIG. How about that? Final area. It's hard to write, but you need to do this. You need to start, you need to understand when you need to exit, or if you need to exit, how do you go about doing that? What do you need to do if you need to end your business? That's the number one. And how will you know it's time to exit? Um, if you um, if you leave and you have clients, what happens to your clients? Will you continue to serve them as you're working in another capacity? Are you going to transition them to another colleague? What are your additional liabilities? Do you have employees? These sorts of things. Additional sections. So this is obviously a template for you to use however you'd like. Do you want a logic model for yourself? A lot of us create logic models for our clients. Why not one for ourselves? What are those things that, what are the inputs? What are the activities? What are our outputs, outcomes, short-term, long-term, sort of things? I've never developed a logic model for myself, but I put it in here because I think it's a clever idea. Um, what are your templates for MOUs or contracts? And I've shared a lot of those before, and we're gonna have a session on contracts with Gumani Lundquist. We're very lucky to have her from via about evaluation. And but how are you? What you could put those in this, or perhaps you create a drive on your virtual drive, and you have MOUs there, and you could click links to it so that you can open them up. Do you have standard operating procedures? How about a plan for subcontracting or a plan for employees? Do you have a 5-year plan? And perhaps you want to put a link or you put it in the document, your CV or resume. In effect, all of this becomes a big document for you to reference anytime you need something, particularly, and this is what I did for the first 5 years. I had a section that just listed out who I was, right? Goshen Consulting, this is what Goshen Consulting does. And people would ask me to write a proposal, and I needed like a blurb, like a paragraph blurb of what Goshen, and I just kept going back and I copy and paste it. So it was like my reference document that I used when I needed to talk to people about what Goshen was. There were times where I shared the entire document with clients that I felt secure sharing it with, and just to kind of say, here's who I am. You can flip through this and understand what to do. All right. So I have, as you guys know, if you've been around for a while or if you're new, I like to do 5.5 somethings. So this is 5.5 reflections on business planning. This idea gives you direction. If you're sitting there stuck and you don't know what to do, minimally, this is a reflective exercise. It's a journaling exercise for you to just kind of get yourself moving to do something when you're just like stuck in that mire of what am I supposed to do? Well, here's direction. Take a look at this document and think about it and start to do those things. It's probably only a private internal document, but it's a document you might want to share with um, business or life partners, both, so that you kind of have a sense for it. It is a consolidated document of all your thoughts. It's a good place for you to reference things when you're kind of trying to discuss what you are or what you're trying to do, or if you're like, oh, I need to market. What did I say I was going to, how was I going to market? What are my fees? How did I come up with that? Those sorts of things. It's living, meaning it's continuing to change. Like I said earlier, it's a good reference as you pursue work. You can go back and find that section in there that is the blurb about who you are and what you're trying to do. And it describes so that you can describe yourself to others. All right, well, that's our session now, and that's not accurate anymore because I didn't update this slide, but I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to stop the video. So if you're out there in YouTube land, we'll see you later. If you're alive, stick around.